Hi everyone, welcome back. This is going to be a mini series, we think. So we've got Jane Bilham. Welcome, Jane.
Yeah.
We're going to chat a little bit about, I think, just general business stuff. There's a lot that we want to share. We're going to talk a bit of shop, which means it's going to be about a 4 hour long episode because we can't shut up once we start going into it. Which I'm really excited about. And just off record, we were just saying about, what's the kind of the role of doing a joint podcast like this. And I think first of all, it's always a pleasure to chat with Jane. Like we connect a lot on voice notes and we call. We have a monthly meeting where we just check in with one another, which is an absolute lifesaver. And I know that there's lots to share. But today we really want to focus on personal development and the idea that there's this like chalk and cheese with when it's done in school, it's almost like a done to you thing. But when you leave and you're on your own and you're a self-employed tutor or a business owner, or perhaps you're a limited company, like you've got this choice. And that can be just as scary. Like, where do you go? And I've often shared, particularly with Jane, like my journey has been quite scary. I've always felt quite fearful of that investment, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But Jane, let's ask you the question. Like, tell us a little bit about just your personal development at school, what it was like, and then in comparison to what happened when you left and you became like a business owner.
Yeah, so my personal development, I was really fortunate. We were talking about this off camera that I had an amazing experience. I worked at a brilliant secondary school that was nationally recognised. I did my PGCE, my long placement there, and that gave me an amazing foundation. And that then enabled me to work in a leading edge school. It was a leading edge school at the time. That's how old I am. But they gave me a real grounding. They had amazing CPD. They asked me to lead on CPD. I was very involved in that, even as an NQT. I led whole school workshops on assessment for learning. They took us away for away days, and myself and another NQT led a workshop, which was crazy.
Wow.
But that was really important for me. It gave me a really good foundation to then move on in my career to a point where then I was in charge of the CPD calendar. And had a lot of autonomy, a lot of trust. I think I've talked about this before in my in the podcast that we did the first time. But also it was very collaborative. We were given a lot of freedom because we were an outstanding school to develop ideas and programs that were really at the cutting edge of what the research was guiding people to at the time. A lot of passion in the kind of the approach to learning and teaching. And we led a CPD program that really empowered staff to take control of their CPD. That's certainly my perspective as the leader of the CPD calendar.
Well, we
I
was
think that the feedback was very positive from the staff. I hope that it wasn't done to them, but I was very mindful of that when we were creating and collaborating those particular kind of models.
Jane, I wonder that we've got contrasting
Mhm.
maybe experience on this. Now, I was primary, so in primary, for me it felt like a repetition. Like you'd sit down with your supervisor or your line manager, and you do your targets for the year, and usually one of those targets was to attend something that often came as a pre-filled box. And so you'd go, oh, I'm going to go to year two SATs training again. Okay, I did that last year and the year before. Should we do it again? Is anything really going to change? It's like, well, look, I get the need to stay up to date with that because things can change, and there was always little bits. But uh, to say something we also said off camera, perhaps that's just an email that I need to read rather than a whole day out doing something I've already done. Surely there's something else I could be doing that would be more beneficial. And I know there'll be others that echo that. Do you think like the CPD at secondary is different, or do you think that's just like your experience of it?
I'm not sure, to be honest, because that was certainly my experience. I don't feel like it was. there are obviously certain elements that you do feel done to, and
Mm,
it's not particularly differentiated in certain ways. But I think maybe because I had that experience, I was very mindful that I did not want to create that for others.
mm,
Um, so we would have newsletters rather than those meetings. Meetings for us were all about taking action and learning, not about just being sitting there lectured.
mm.
Two, it was all very kind of collaborative, and moving things forward. And that was always a question in our team that we had: could this be an email? And if the answer was yes, then it was sent as a newsletter, it was sent as an email. So that there was that energy in
I like
meetings and
that.
trainings.
I
It
like that
just
a
kind
lot.
of
Yeah.
removed all of that kind of
Yeah.
experience of sitting there being lectured to.
So in school, very much sounds like you was in a really good space, like to have that freedom and then actually then apply it in a way that you knew was going to work because you'd experienced it differently yourself somewhere else. I think that's really powerful. How has that led you since leaving school and having like this open canvas to do whatever you want?
Well, I think, well, we definitely talked about this, but so I had that conversation with my sister-in-law, didn't I, where she was like, "You're a business, Jane, like you need to do this." And I was like, "Oh, right,
Mm,
am I?" And then off I trotted. And and I've always been quite proactive, but my first experience of investing that wasn't a free, I mean, the local council around where we are had amazing free training, which I absolutely grabbed with both hands and got on that. But I felt like there wasn't really a financial investment in that. And yes, I think by my very nature and character, like I take things seriously. I want to take action. I love learning stuff. Like I'm such a geek. Like I just love learning new stuff. But there wasn't the financial investment of that. And the first time that I invested financially was with a power hour with you.
oh,
That
what
was
was
the
the first
first step.
time? Wow.
Yeah, that was the first time that I'd ever spent money on my personal development. And we had a chat, didn't we, about I think it was pre-recorded lessons, because I had an arrangement with one of my partners and just wanted to see where that could go
Mm,
in the domestic market. And I just, yeah, it was really scary. I mean, obviously it wasn't massive, it wasn't thousands of pounds, but just taking that step to say, right, I'm going to spend X amount on 1 hour with somebody was
mm,
really quite alien after having everything provided for you
mm.
as a teacher, where you may not necessarily get a choice, it's all free. And going from that to spending money, or having, feeling that there is a need to spend money if you want to develop, it was quite a big thing. I like massively.
Yeah, I agree. And well, thank you, because that's amazing, by the way. The first time you did that, you chose me. That's a lot of trust. And I think the word trust will come up a lot when we talk about that investment in yourself, because it's not just the trust in the person that you're investing in, like you're paying that invoice. It's also the trust in yourself that you are going to follow through with something. And here's like the kicker, like so many of that type of support, people then don't follow through,
Mm.
and then that's what the experience they take to the next thing that they do. It's like, okay, well, I didn't do it last time, but now it's different, and I'm gonna just. And then people jump from that, what, either a coach, from one coach to another coach, or a course to another course, however it is that people invest. And I'm always really wary of that. And one of the questions that I ask everybody is, what have you done recently? Have you invested in something? And it's really strange because I got an email yesterday, that said, "Hi, Rich. We spoke about a year ago, and I really appreciated your honesty because I just finished a course. I was about to sign up to yours. We had a really quick conversation, but I mentioned this thing and you said do X, Y, Z." And I was like, yeah, now that to me makes sense. And I think that's how we develop trust. One, because I want to make sure that if you put some time and money behind something, go and try it. Like really go for it. Don't think, oh, I've done that now, I'm going to move on to something else. I want people to implement it because it should work, right? Because otherwise like people need feedback on their courses, like in the same way I ask feedback for my course, or whether it's even power hours or whatever. I think trust is really big. My first investment was a little bit more. My first investment was 2000. Yeah, and at the time, I look back now and I think it was probably a year too early. I've said, and I
Right.
know I've mentioned this in other podcasts as well. My business wasn't making that a month, so it was still early. But there was just an element really deep inside that was like, you need to do it. This is it. This is going to help you get to the next stage. Because I felt a little bit, well, I did feel stuck because I wasn't sure about how I was going to make the next. But I was still driving around in my car, still sort of stuck in traffic every day, and late for some sessions, really early for others, and
Wow.
just running myself into the ground. Still working part time for somebody else, and still trying to build my own business. Um, and the other, so there was a lot of fear around that. And the other thing that was attached to this was because the business wasn't making a lot of money,
Mhm.
there were financial strains at home. And then I had to have the conversation with Katie to say, oh, by the way, I've just signed up to this thing. It's £2,000, and but it'll be okay. And you can imagine the look because like probably 3 days before, I'm like, oh, do you know, I have to be really careful with money for the next. And then I'm like, I've just spent £2,000 on something. By the way, because I didn't have £2,000, there was a payment plan. But because there was a payment plan and that allowed me
Mhm.
access, I've always had a payment plans on all of my things because I think it's so important that as long as it's the right thing, I'd never put anybody into debt. And if someone was paying on a credit card, I'd rather they go, I'm going to pay on a credit card. And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to support you a different way. I don't want to put you into debt in any way that if something was like £300 by paying on a credit card would mean potentially double the cost just because of interest and payments and things. So it's been that's something that's really been really important. But it's that other side of, okay, it's okay investing in yourself, but there will be things around it that might feel uncomfortable. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yes. So I most people I work with Teresa Heath Waring, and I met her at Atomicon, which again, like not £2,000, Richard, but during our power hour, you said you must go to Atomicon. It's just
Yeah.
down the road, and that was I think that was about £400,
Mm.
which felt like a lot of money at the time.
It is for a day, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah, and I didn't really know what it was. I was just like, but I think like we connected during our power hour, didn't we?
Mm.
And I was like, right, that building trust is so important. Like the questions that you asked me before the power hour built that trust. Like I thought, actually, you're taking this really seriously. You really want to help. It's obviously a really genuine kind of desire to help people. It felt like a safe investment.
Mm.
Um, and I think that I then started working with Teresa because I met her at Atomicon, which is another story in itself. But yeah, working with her was a big step. It was a big monthly commitment. It did feel scary in lots of ways, not just for the financial commitment, but in terms of mindset, thinking, right, I'm taking the next step now. Like I'm hiring a business coach who is going to help me. I need to make this work, It is a significant amount per month. Um, it is, quite a significant time commitment, but it has really transformed everything about my business in the last 12 months. And she's just a dream to work with, has helped me, gets me, we're really aligned, really fit. And yeah, that was terrifying, but it has absolutely been the best decision I've possibly ever made,
What
to
do you
work with
think?
her.
Where do you think the biggest impact's been on your business? And you don't have to do numbers, but you might say, yeah, financially it's really supported it. But has there been other things as well?
Oh yeah, well yeah. I mean, financially, it's made a huge difference. But it is. I think for me, it has been all about mindset. You know, 4 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mum. I had a side hustle. I didn't see tuition as a future, as everybody knows. And I think when I look at that perspective, being stay-at-home mum doing bits and pieces, just examining and just doing lots of little bits, I really feel so empowered, and just the mindset that
Mm.
that move has made me, has created for me in that transition has been astronomical. One of my targets was, when I started working with her, to like feel like a proper business. Rather than just I was just messing about with something. And I remember at the time she said, how are you going to measure that? Because nobody will ever feel like they have a proper business. Everybody feels like they're winging it. How are you going to measure that? Like, she gives a lot of challenge. Um, but I got had my branding done. My website's just about to be go live, and I had some branded merchandise created for the National Tutors Conference, and that arrived in the post this week. And I looked at it and I sent a photograph and I said, look, I know you said, how are you going to measure this? But this is a real step towards that. It just felt incredible, to have a brand that you're proud of, to have a business that feels like it is something bigger than yourself,
Mm.
is really exciting. And she's really helped me with that. But
Mm.
and obviously I need a lot of hand holding. She works with a lot of business owners, and I'm quite mindful that in comparison to other people who have vast amounts of experience in the business world and the corporate world, I need a lot of hand holding, like to understand how to create a sales page, how to launch something, I really need a lot of guidance with that. So the practicalities of it as well, have
Mm.
been very, very useful, for me. But it's been a lot about mindset in the first stage. I think the next level will be interesting, about where we go next with it. But
We've both read the Shoe Dog book, and if you haven't read the Shoe Dog book, I definitely recommend it. It is like a business book, but really it's an autobiography of the guy who created Nike, and Phil Knight. And the whole story is pretty crazy. And he talks about this whole thing with business, that it doesn't matter what stage you're at. Every time you go to the next level, there's more problems. And you think, right, if we just get there, then you go to the next stage and there's new problems. It never ends. It's constant. And don't get me wrong, it's good that we do this, like, because we add to our toolbox and we get better at certain parts of the business, and we all have different strengths anyway. We don't have to be masters of everything. That's something which I'm still learning now, like letting go of certain things and letting other people do things that within their zone of genius. Um, but mindset at the beginning of a business, like it, we can't understate how important it is that we work on the mindset. But I think even that is very broad. So when we talk about mindset at the early stage of business, it can be things like worrying about putting a social media post out because nobody knows you're starting a business yet. It could be that you've mentioned that you're starting a business and someone really close to you has said, "Oh, I can't believe you're leaving teaching." And that's it. And then that stopped you for 2 months. It's like at the real basic level, it's that kind of stuff. Now, once you deal with those smaller, well, they're big, but in relative terms of the stuff you're going to face in your business, once you've overcome them, there are going to be bigger mindset things like, what's it like to have 10K a month going into your bank account, and the feelings that you get from that. This was something that was unexpected for me. I was like, because I couldn't wait, I was thinking, yeah, 10K a month, that's amazing. And I'm thinking turnover, not profit. Let's be really clear. And then I'm like, well, actually, it's not as much as what I thought it was going to be. And then your accountant, I have an account. I've always had an account. I know some people do their own accounts in the early stages, but I always had one, just because I never really want to go to prison. I've got to be honest. That's always been it. I don't want to have big fines. I don't want someone knocking on the door going, you owe us 20 grand or we're going to haul you off. So I was always like, again, being scared of something, but it just seemed sensible to me. And then my accountant's like, yeah, but now you need to pay this, and your self-assessment's going to be that, and then there's other things that happen, and and just things around business I had no idea around, like so business accounts compared to personal accounts,
Yes.
the insurance side of business, which I don't know why that seemed scary at the time.
Yeah.
Like there's just little things that were, I felt really there was a lot of fear. And then it was like, oh, I just need public liability insurance. That's quite easy.
Mhm.
Oh, I just need to separate my accounts because that'll make life a lot easier. And then it was like, oh, I can just do invoicing rather than just sending out my bank details. Oh, I can do online invoicing. That makes it really easy for people to pay. I can do payment links online. I like all these things, which I was really scared of. And then suddenly you just do it bit by bit. And I wouldn't have got there without having support, which is what this is all about, right? Personal
Yeah.
development. And the course that I did originally was Lisa Johnson's One to Many. And there was a lot of tech support, things I'd had a website before, never heard of a landing page, didn't know how to write a sales page, didn't really know how to package up services. That idea was completely foreign to me. But then I moved on because that was working. And the support stopped because it was a course essentially. It wasn't really business coaching in that way. And I felt like I needed that ongoing support. So I joined a mastermind, and that was a lot of money again. And it was about £1,000 a month I was paying.
Wow.
And at the time, like the business was better. So I'm not in stage one, like in the beginning when I'm telling Kate, like, oh, I could spend £2,000. I was all worried about it. The business was making money and it was good. You know, there was money going into the account was growing, and I felt really confident with everything. And then I wanted to go to the next stage, which meant this bigger investment. And basically anything that I was really earning, that was really building up the coffers, was going to go. And the irony of it was that because I had to make an extra £1,000 a month, I couldn't actually go to the sessions that I needed to go to. So again, I felt, looking back now in hindsight, I think I did it a year too early,
Mhm.
because a year later, I don't know whether I'd been in the same space a year later without the support, because there was still support. I still had a one-to-one business coach. There was just other things I couldn't do. But I don't think that's the risk like I was willing to take.
Mhm.
And I sit here now 3 years on, and I'm still appreciative of that support. But I also remember the feeling of being 6 months into it going, oh, I'm not sure they should have sold me this. I don't think they asked me the right questions.
Mhm.
And hence why I ask these questions up front, because I want to know that if somebody's going to get involved, that they're in the right space, that it's not going to cause we do need a little bit of stress and pressure, right? We just don't want it to be chronic stress. We do want to feel like, we're invested, we need to make something work. I really believe that, but not to the point where you are going to have to work yourself to the bone to get there. Because that to me is not a dream business. We want to leave all that stuff behind.
I
So
think
that,
that's I think that's where we aligned though as well, Richard, and that's where we kind of when we started talking about working together and
yeah,
collaborating, and it was like actually I saw how you worked from the power hour that we did
mm,
and really aligned with that about those values of being honest and kind of not that anybody's dishonest, but that honesty, that genuine kind of desire to help people, and also the transparency is really important. So
yeah.
definitely taking your lead from that in the way that um that we have the kind of criteria for people for my course. And I know that you've turned people away from yours, just like I've turned people away from mine because it's just not the right time for them.
And it might seem bizarre to some people. I know it seemed bizarre to my business coach. He's like, "Why are you turning people away?" Because he's like, you want to make sure you get people through. And I get it from his perspective, but from mine, I want to make sure it's as bulletproof as possible. So if someone comes back and says it wasn't the right thing, I know I've done everything up front to kind of negate that as much as I can. So there's as much information out there as possible. Like even in our power hour, like we were looking to see whether it was right to continue doing something.
Yes.
And I can remember feeling, do you know what? I'm not sure I'm the right person. Not because we don't align, but I
Mhm.
felt like we were almost identical to where we were in business. And I think that that's important too.
Yeah.
Like to go, we're at the same stage. So we'd be learning together.
Yeah.
And I've had conversation with people in who want to do the course. I'm like, I'm not sure you need the course. You need something else. Perhaps it's the next level up because you're already doing this. What I'm about to share with you for 12 weeks, you've got it.
I think as well with like business coaches and things, I think in the business world, the kind of package that you and I are offering is often at a much, much higher price point.
Yeah.
And I
Yes,
think
true.
that that's certainly one that conversation that I've had to have with the business coach that I work with is that actually in the teaching world, you are making the transition from having everything provided for you to then having to invest, and that is scary. Like we've both experienced that, and
Mm,
it does, because I've had similar conversations about, well, why are you turning people away? And it's like it's because of the type of kind of profession that we are involved in. Like we really do understand the fear associated with investment and this idea that it needs to be right for people because
mm.
it's not necessarily an industry where people are used to having to make a financial investment to develop their business. It is really important, that kind of aspect, I think.
Yeah, it is. And then trust
Hmm.
that it is going to be the right decision
Yeah.
for them, whatever it is that they decide, whether it's a no or whether it's going to be a solid yes. When you've had conversations like with your loved ones, like with your husband or close friends, when you've decided to kind of go, yeah, I'm going to invest in this thing. What's led that conversation? Has it been support, or have they also tried to be not negative, but perhaps ask you questions to make sure that you are okay and you feel confident with what you're about to do?
I'm really lucky in that I am like I have a lot of trust placed in me, so nothing's ever really questioned. But I think with that comes a lot of pressure. And I think so. I'm going on the TTA trip to China, and that was a big decision. I did, because ultimately this means that we can't go on a family holiday this year. And that was a big decision that we had to make. And I was really supported in that. But there were questions asked about what the kind of outcome of it is going to be. And the honest answer is I do not know. And that is the first time where I have felt it. I think I didn't sign up until very, very close to the deadline, not because I didn't want to go, but just because I really had to make sure that it was the right thing. And I spent quite a long time going back and forwards and thinking, why am I doing this? Why is it because everybody else is going and I don't want to be left out because that's not the right reason to go? Is it because I have a clear plan about how this fits in with my business? Well, yes, I do. It's still scary though. And I feel like that trust that's placed in me is not, it's pressure. Like, and that's really what drives me. It in the end, I came to the resolution. I felt much happier about it and much less angsty that I'm doing it for me. And that I'm really supported in that. And I'm really fortunate in that, when it came down to it, I think I really wanted to go. And if I didn't go, it would be to please other people
Mm,
rather than kind of, you know, myself. And that I'm really lucky to be supported in that, that I did reach the conclusion that it's for me because for me to get on a plane from where I've come from, the kind of background that I have, I feel quite emotional about it actually. The kind of background that I have and the fact that I was a stay-at-home mum 4 years ago, I feel like I want to get on that plane for me.
mm,
And I'm not really bothered about anything else that happens as a consequence of it. Like, obviously, it would be amazing if I make the contacts and all the
mm,
rest of it, and it takes my business to the next level. But I feel like it is enough for me to get out of it, just getting on that plane and being there. But that's the first time where I felt really, really scared about a decision. And it's actually had implications, I think. Everything else has felt quite manageable. But the trip to China has been really, really hard. I don't, but you're going as well. Like, how did you feel about it?
Similar. Do you know what I think is different for me is the timing. Like you've got quite a young family,
Mhm.
and so the impact is, I'm not saying me going to China doesn't impact my children because I'm not going to be there for 10 days or 11 days or whatever it's going to be. And, I'm going to miss them. They'll miss me, all of those things. But I think from a business perspective, I'm, I don't know how long you've been running the business for now, Jane. How long have you been running the business for?
About 10 years.
Right, 10 years. So longer than me, right? It's longer than me. So I'm about 5 years in, and I think we're at the stage where I think they wait for me to open the door and go, oh, I'm doing this thing. Just wait for it. And I'm also super lucky that there's a lot of trust. But I think because there's been some success over the last 3 years, like it's like, oh, okay, there, I think Rich has got it. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there'll be a point when I do something, I'll be like, that was a mistake. That's
Yeah.
not worked. And I'm not kind of ready for that. If I'm honest, I'm quite risk averse, I think, in
Yeah,
general.
yeah,
Like
I
there's,
definitely am. Like and I think this is what I'm learning. Like I am very, very risk averse, but actually, like business is all about risk in lots of
but you
ways.
can count. I think now, look, there's solid platforms. So this is where perhaps where we might lose a few people because we're sort of talking at the next level up. Is like, look,
Yeah.
we've both got quite secure businesses. We're not multimillionaires, but there's enough money coming in every month that mortgages get paid. There's car payments or whatever it is that most people would have. I don't have car payments anymore because I don't have a car, which I absolutely love, apart from having to walk about in the rain all the time. But everything's covered. So
Yeah.
from a confidence point of view, I'm like, no, I'm okay. And so I think it's a different decision process now. And like you lent into it earlier where you're like, look, actually, we can go to China. And the worst outcome would be we've been to China.
Yeah.
You can say they've been to China, right? First, on a business trip. Like that seems nuts. Secondly, is you're going to meet interesting people, connected people. You're going to make connections. You're also going to make connections with people who are going, like the other
Mm.
25 other people who were signed up, which I think is also a massive benefit. And then we're going to be traveling around China, just going to different places. Like, so the worst possible outcome is you go on a trip, you're going to work hard. It's going to be a slog, but I'm sure there's going to be time to have some fun along the way as well. I'm sure that will happen. And then we come home and then it's not like we're not going to do anything. And if it doesn't work, it won't be because we haven't put the effort in um, or for a lack of trying, but the outcome is that something will come of it. Because my experience of this, and I know it's yours as well, is that when you make the move to invest in yourself, when you put and my daughter will now roll her eyes at me, my 22-year-old daughter Olivia, because she's just not on board with this at all, is that when you put the energy out there, it comes back. And so yeah, okay, it might not be China, but it happens, something else will happen. And I've experienced this week. And again, my daughter's like, she just won't have any of it. She's just like, nah. So we were talking about creating something that's beyond the core. So the membership, but something that was higher level, so like from a tuition perspective, some tuition support. But nothing more than us chatting. Completely private conversation between you and I, wasn't it? About what, maybe 10 days ago,
Yeah.
and then a few little voice notes. And then I'd not done anything about it other than write down a bit of a plan and the idea, fleshed it out a little bit. That's it. It stayed completely private between me, you, and my notepad. And then I got emails. I've had emails over the last 3 weeks saying, oh, I'm looking for some one-to-one support. I don't advertise one-to-one support. I do it. I like there's a power hour thing, which we've spoken about, but just generally I don't advertise. And suddenly it just starts to move. And I was like, see, Olivia, it does work. There's something here with this. And I don't have the scientific know-how on how it works or why it works, but there's definitely something about just putting yourself out there, creating it, and everything starts with a thought and then you've got to take the action. I don't quite believe 100% in the secret manifestation, but I believe it starts there to me. It's level one. Is that
Mhm.
something you've experienced as well?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes. In the last few weeks, I think just breaking it down into manageable steps is like really important. Like I had a massive block about booking my flights.
Mm,
Like I couldn't book the flight because I just
right.
thought, oh my gosh, like I just couldn't do it. But I did it. I just sat down and got it done after a few weeks of procrastinating, and things are starting to happen. Like I've had contacts come through, and a lot more work's coming through.
Great.
It has just kind of taken off really. But I think breaking it down into those steps, like you say, and just I think I'm a lot better about catching myself now. And
Mm,
my husband will be like, "You're so much better at just articulating, like, well, what's going on?" But I'll be like, "No, I feel a bit blocked by this." Like, I think 12 months ago, I would have just spiraled and gone, "Oh my goodness, like, I can't book my flight." And that's just been completely paralyzed by it. But I was like, "No, I can't book my flight because I'm scared about what this means. And, I'm scared about where this is going to take me. But if I want to go, I've just got to book it. So I did it, and then it just starts. You then start to take action, don't you? It's like, right, I've booked my flight. Now I need to get my visa sorted, which is a whole other story of voice notes in the visa office to you. Um, but yeah, it's just every step is it's just recognizing what's kind of stopping you and just moving forward. But you're right, like once you put that energy out there, things do. Yeah, I've had a lot more kind of contacts this week. Um, I'm seeing that with the course as well, actually, like because we're in week 4 now, so we're getting really close to the end. And it is like what you say about like that manifestation. I don't know if you can like will something into reality, but was it Jen Gottlieb at Atomicon? She said, you can train your subconscious so that then you then just see the opportunities for what you're aiming for around there. And that's definitely the case for the people on the course at the moment. Like they're just on it in that they can just see the opportunities, they can sense them because they're now looking for it. And
mm.
that's really magical. That is magical.
I like the analogy of well, I don't like it, but I know it's the reality is that paralysis
Oh,
that,
I was completely like it was
yeah,
ridiculous. It was
yeah.
absolutely ridiculous because they were going up in price, and Tim was my husband was like, you need to book your flight, and he had to sit next to me and like help me because I got to the point where I was worried about booking it on the wrong day. I was worried about booking it on the wrong time, like from the wrong airport, which is absolutely ridiculous. But these were the stories that I was telling myself, like you're going to make a mistake, like this is really big and this is a big investment, and if you mess this
Mm,
up, like it's going to be like really bad. Like it was just there in my head. I was absolutely paralyzed. But once I just broke the seal of that, I've got so much stuff sorted now. I've got my list of everything that I need to do. I'm working through it each day. Like I've got people kind of working with me on that and helping me and supporting me, which is really exciting. But I feel like I've just pushed through that now when I'm at that stage where I can move forward. But just being able to catch myself. Do you
mm.
get that? Are you aware of like more aware of what's stopping you?
Yeah, but not an instant thing. Often it's in like maybe the day after or a couple of days after I go, "Oh, I wonder why I didn't do this thing that I really needed to do. Whether it's like that, like booking your flights and the China thing is a really big thing. So like I can't, I get why there would be those feelings there. Sometimes for me, it's really small things like sending an invoice.
Yeah, yeah.
Like really, and I'm like, well, of course I need to send that invoice. I need that money coming in. Like, why am I leaving it 48 hours and I just know I need to do
Mhm.
it? And then like it'll be like, oh, you're either like not in the right mood for it. Like, so sometimes the mood is low, and perhaps at that point, maybe going through, particularly this sort of time of year when I'm redoing the timetable, prices are going up. So my mindset goes into, right, am I really worth that an hour? Or
Yeah.
is that whole half term worth this amount of parents are going to pay it? And if I'm in that kind of mood or
Mhm.
those thoughts are creeping in my mind, I'm not sending invoices
Yeah.
because I'm like, oh, no one's going to pay it. No one's going to pay it.
Mhm.
Whereas I know the reality of that's completely different. No
Yeah.
one bats an eyelid when it goes up.
Yeah.
But my current clients all stay the same, but
Mhm.
most move on. That's my I know a lot of questions happen this time of year about price rises. So my price rises happen in September because new people come in. So
Mm.
it's this time of year that those things come in. But I think like I am better at catching it. But the one thing I'm really working on at the moment is attaching meaning to thing and that positive meaning, because I really take on board that whole like what you focus on it or what you're focusing on is what you're going to find. So
Yeah,
it's almost like you are what you eat, isn't it? It's like what you
yeah.
consume. So for example, Jen Gottlieb was saying about that whole like if you start focusing on opportunities,
Mm.
opportunities are going to come. You're going to see the opportunities. I watched something years ago, probably college. I'm going back a long, long time. So long ago that when I did go and find the video of this, it's really grainy and not very good, which I was a bit gutted about because I would like to use it. But have you seen the gorilla where they're
No,
bouncing the basketball? You ever seen that?
no.
Oh, right. So there's a psychology. This was recorded by a psychology, I think probably in Harvard, or what's the other big one in America? Harvard and Stanford
Yale,
and Yale. So
Stanford.
one of those, right? One of those. Um, and they said like it's so we get so narrow-minded that even when the obvious anomalies in front of us, we can ignore it. So what
Right.
the challenge is set before you see anything, a slide is put on the screen and it says, we want you to count how many times the basketball is passed between the people taking part. And so you're so focused counting, and then it stops and says, what was the number? And people guess or whatever. And they continue playing. And then a new slide comes up and says, did you see the gorilla bouncing the basketball going from left to right of the screen? Everyone's like, nah, there was not a gorilla. And then they play it again, and then the gorilla's back, and you're like, no way. You think, right, they've planted that gorilla like in the second clip, but then you go all the way back to the beginning because you don't trust them, and it's there. And
Oh
so you're
my
so
gosh.
focused on this thing that you've
Yeah,
missed that.
yeah.
And what's the guy's name? He's got a raspier voice than me today, from America. Tony Robbins.
Hmm.
I watched something with Tony Robbins about this is about 6 months ago, which reminded me of the gorilla thing. He put up some items. He sat down to working one to one with somebody, and there were items in his office, all different colors. And the exercise was, look, well, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I want you to look around the room, and I want you to pick out and remember as many of the blue items as you can. So the guy sat there 30 seconds looking around. And at the end, Tony Robbins says, right, now name every red thing that you can remember. And the guy couldn't remember a thing because obviously he's focused on the blue. He said,
Yeah.
look, there's red and there was red, green, and blue things. And he's like, but look, there's the same ratio of everything. But because you're focusing on that, you're not seeing everything
Yeah.
else. And the point he was saying there is that we can get transfixed and focused on all the negative things. So if we're focused on the negative things, what are we going to spot?
Hmm.
Just more negative stuff. If we're focused
Yeah.
on the positive, we're going to focus on more. If we're focused on the opportunities, we're going to see more
Yeah.
opportunities. If we're putting that energy out there, that's going to come back at us. If we really believe in the prices that we offer, guess what?
Mhm.
No one's going to batter an eyelid. And you can see how that can really support what we do in business just by changing our focus and the way and the things we want to notice in our life. So they're really powerful things. Although really long-winded way of putting it across.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I love your stories, Richard.
Get the
I
blanket on,
think
hot
that's a good
chocolate.
place to start, though, isn't it? And I think
Yeah.
that's maybe where the first investment was, like just reading, like reading
Mm.
as much as I could. Like it is really important to kind of just try and shift that mindset. But looking at the positives is really important. Like I've got an amazing planner, and it makes me note down a quick win at the end of
Mm.
every single day and just
Oh, nice.
refocusing on the positives and just revisiting like where you've come from as well, I think, because
Mm.
it's coming so it's the 15th of July today, and I realized our first podcast that I did with you was on the 30th of July last year. And when I think
Wow.
about how different everything is now for both of us,
Yeah. Yeah. So different.
it's crazy, isn't it? And
Mm.
I think, I know that you're saying about kind of investing with opportunities and kind of looking for them, but I think sometimes things just align, don't they? Because I didn't go into that power hour with you thinking, oh, do you know what? And then we're going to collaborate, and then we're going to do a podcast, and then we're going to become friends, and all of
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. Like, it's really incredible. Like I find it amazing that
Mm.
the universe can just align and you can kind of connect with people that kind of can change the course of your business and your life, really.
Yeah.
Like I met Teresa at a Tomicon in 2023, and I kind of I shared this on my social media today, but I went to a Tomicon on your recommendation and um went there, was completely terrified. I was on my own. I was absolutely terrified. Just grabbed the nearest seat that I could and sat next to somebody who turned around and said, "Oh, I like your dress." I was like, "Oh my goodness, thank you so much. You're talking to me," and just felt at ease. And then I wandered round and had chosen my workshop and went into this workshop on mindset. And the lovely lady who had been talking to me and made small talk complimenting on my dress was on the stage delivering the
Wow.
most inspirational
Mm.
talk. And I just think, what happens if I hadn't gone there? What happens if I had sat in a different seat? Because I walked into Atomicon 2024 a completely different person.
See, that's
Um,
real power, isn't it? Like there's a lot
yeah,
of power there.
yeah, it is about investing and it is about making the decisions, but sometimes you've just got to lean into what's given to you, really.
So that's giving me goosebumps. And I'll tell you why, because there's a chain reaction of events. And it's often
Absolutely.
the chain reaction of events that starts with someone taking a risk on themselves. Nick James, who runs Expert Empires, he was one of the first business conferences I went to. He tells his story of how that business started. A friend called him up and went, I'm going to this thing in London to see Gary Vaynerchuk, but my friend's just pulled out. He can't come. Do you want his ticket? And he just lost a business, right? £1 million business basically just lost. He had nothing. He was like, yeah, okay. Like I've got literally nothing else to do. He basically said, look, Karma, I've got the hotel room. You don't have to pay anything. I'll shout you the weekend. And then in that in the training or conference, I can't remember what it was. Gary Vaynerchuk was giving away prizes, and one of the prizes was an hour with Gary Vaynerchuk. Now there was
Wow.
like 800 people at this thing, of which Nick James was not meant to be there, but Nick won the one-to-one. And that's what started Expert Empires. And you're like, wow, like, so he could have been like really focused on the negatives because he just lost his business. And there's a whole story behind that for him, which is not for me to tell. But he basically had left with nothing. So you could imagine how he was feeling in that moment. And yet, like a few weeks later, someone's like, "Come round and have this. Come to this thing in London with me. It's going to be really positive." You think, I don't want to be around positive people. Do you know what I mean? I've just lost a business. Well, I don't want to. Just want to go and like lay in bed and just feel sorry for myself. But because he said yes, he put himself into a space where there was the opportunity to then do this next thing. And these things have chain reactions to them. And once you
Absolutely.
start them, they get momentum and they grow. Like for our meeting, it was not a chance meeting. You decided, like, I want to invest in
Yeah.
myself. I want to get to the next level. There's something here. I just so happened, like, I'm not saying the power hour was a waste of time, but at the end, like, I don't think I can help you, Jane. Like, I'm
So
sure
you were
the
like,
hour was
come on my
fine.
podcast, Jane. You
Yeah.
should come on my podcast. And then I was like, oh, I can't go on a podcast.
But
Why would anyone want to listen
But
to
it
what I've got
leads
to
on, right?
say?
So you get to know people, and then suddenly it's like, well, actually, there's a role in here. I think there's like a way of like you got something to offer that is going to really support the tuition industry and people out of school, which is a real big passion. If they want to leave, I don't want to take really good people away from school, not dragging them out. Often these people have made decisions, but one thing leads to another, and then you go, oh, suddenly we're at this point now where it's a year on. What have you run international tutors with five or three
Three
times?
times, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
and you literally, we say this a lot, and in private, we say, wow, we're literally changing people's lives by doing this. We're making sure that, and I know you are super passionate about this because of the freedom it gives
Mhm.
mums to be
Yeah.
around for their children more. So they're not working in the evenings or they don't have to work in the evenings. It's changing things for them. It's meaning not only that, but they're able to use their skills and really like support people around the world and earn good money at the same time. It's like a win for everybody. So I know you're really passionate about
Yeah.
that, but all starts from someone taking a risk on themselves.
Does
And
and
that's the
just saying
power of
yes.
investment.
just saying yes,
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
yes instead of no. I think that's been what's really shifted for me. Um, just not being, feeling the fear. I don't want to say feeling the fear and doing it anyway, because that's awful, isn't it? Because we
Appreciate.
all feel it, and it does stop us from doing things, but it's just being better at managing that fear, maybe. But yeah,
Thank you. We'll leave it there. I know there's more doors we could go down, without a
loads of
doubt.
doors, Richard.
More doors, right? But we will. But if I'm really hoping that for the people listening, this has made an impact with you, because if you're sat on the fence about what you do next,
Mhm.
or perhaps you already sat on a really solid business, but you're like, "Do you know what? I think there's more," and you're not sure where to go to next. It could be that you are now ready to start investing in yourself, wherever that may be.
Absolutely,
Be ready.
absolutely.
Right. Thanks, Jane. We'll speak
Okay.
soon.